In late December 2015, the Vice Chancellor of Germany accused Saudi Arabia of funding Islamic extremism in the West by establishing Wahhabi mosques around the world. In fact, the connection between Wahhabism, Saudi Arabia, and Islamic extremism has been an uneasy one in light of several terror attacks in Europe throughout 2016. So what is the connection? How is Saudi Arabia funding Wahhabi mosques around the world? In Belgium, for example, many blamed the flare-up in religious extremism leading to the attacks in Brussels on the Saudi-sponsored Grand Mosque. The mosque had its main director removed in 2012 for being suspected of teaching Sunni radicalism, similar to that of the Islamic State. Wahhabism itself is a popular form of ultra-conservative Islam practiced by groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and actually has its roots deep into Saudi Arabia's history. It started in the mid-18th century with preacher Muhammad ibn Abd-al-Wahhab, who promoted.
He founded the Wahhabi doctrine around 11 centuries after the advent of Islam, and was inspired by the well-known 13th century theologian Ibn Taymiyyah. Seminary of America says he was very much inclined towards the ideology a few decades ago and understands its appeal, but now finds parts of it to be problematic.
The original manifestation by Ibn Abd-al-Wahhab himself was actually not only quite militant, but also quite fanatical in its excommunication of pretty much the entire world. Ibn Abd-al-Wahhab viewed the Ottoman Empire as being a manifestation of a pagan, un-Islamic, non-Islamic, anti-Islamic empire, and that essentially meant that he viewed the entire world around him to be non-Muslims other than his.
And this Saudi scholar confirms the point.
من كتبه أنه يكفر المسلمين إنما يكفر من كفره الله ورسوله وأجمع المسلمون على تكفيره أما أنه يستقل بمسألة يكفر فيها.
Aidan Bayram says in his academic paper, The Rise of Wahhabi Sectarianism and Its Impact in Saudi Arabia,
they see other Muslims who do not think like Wahhabis as associating partners with God. Thus, their blood and goods are permissible for Wahhabis.
كما سعينا إن شاء الله فيما يظهر الحق ويعلو والأباطيل من تأمل الشيخ وتدبرها وقرأ كتبه رأى حقا أن هذه دعوة صالحة موافقة للكتاب والسنة وأن الله جل وعلا هيأ لها الإمام محمد سعود وأولاده فحموا هذه الدعوة وقاموا بها ونصروها وأيدوها.
With enormous wealth, Saudi Arabia has worked to spread Wahhabism. Since 1962, the Saudi-funded Muslim World League has promoted the construction of Wahhabi mosques around the world, with some sources claiming as many as 1,500 mosques were built in the second half of the 20th century. In fact, it is estimated that more than $100 billion has been spent promoting Wahhabism by Saudi backers.
The Wahhabi ideology has also been linked to many violent movements. It's been blamed for fueling the zeal of the 9/11 hijackers and for influencing groups such as Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, and ISIS.
It is correct to point out that some of the theology, dare I say much of the theology of groups like ISIS actually do go back to the original teachings of the founders.
The fact that ISIS has manipulated and overstated to justify their own terrorist agenda. They're practicing a kind of untamed Wahhabism, strongly encouraging followers to show no mercy to non-believers and issuing orders to kill anyone outside of the faith. And this isn't the first time that Wahhabism has been connected to a terror organization. Alongside ISIS, Wahhabi teachings have also heavily influenced Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. On the surface, it may seem like terror groups are adhering to the strict practice of Islam as a part of the religious crusade that allows them to justify violent action. However, there might be another reason why Wahhabism is being embraced by groups like ISIS. Experts believe that their ulterior motive might be financial. Wahhabism has its roots in Saudi Arabia, one of the richest countries in the world. It's understood that some Saudi charities and private companies are used as a front to fund extremist Wahhabi organizations like ISIS to the tune of $100 billion over the last 30 years. Funding has also been channeled into establishing Wahhabi schools in both Pakistan and Bangladesh, which has concerned local officials who believe the institutes are encouraging terrorism. So how did this happen? Well, we should mention that there is no evidence linking the Saudi government directly to funding terrorist activities. But some Saudi Arabian citizens are funding groups like ISIS. Some experts argue that the citizens in question see funding radical groups as a way to gain a position of power and influence within the Islamic world. Other reports suggest that they might be using the strategy to limit Islamic extremism within their own country by sending young extremists abroad. The Saudi government is trying to restrict the private funding of terror organizations, According to a report by the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, the Saudi Arabian government is closely monitoring its financial sector in order to block suspect donations. Unfortunately, a combination of politics, logistics, and limited reach have impeded efforts by Saudi Arabia to counter terrorism financing. Scholars in Saudi Arabia have also come forward to defend Wahhabism, saying that the teachings are not aligned with ISIS and other terror organizations. They argue that Saudi Arabia
उठकर श्रीनगर में लड़ने के लिए जा रहा है और वो कहता है मैं तो तौहीद के लिए लड़ रहा हूं, तो उसको पूछो तुझे लाहौर में हजवेरी का दरबार नजर नहीं आता? तुझे लाहौर में घोड़े शाह का दरबार नजर नहीं आता? लाहौर में फैलता हुआ शिर्क और कुफर नजर नहीं आता? अपने घर में आग लगी है, किसी की झोपड़ी की आग बुझाने जा रहा, तो वो कश्मीर में मरे, अफगानिस्तान में मरे, इराक में मरे, जहां मर्जी मर जाए, या अली मदद कहने वाला मरेगा तो सीधा जहन्नम में, गरीब नवाज का बंदा मरेगा तो जहन्नम में।
मुसलमानों उठो और इन बने हुए दरगाहियों को और इन बने हुए कब्रों को इनको बम ब्लास्ट कर दो, इनको उड़ा दो, इस दुनिया से नीस्तो नाबूद हो जाएं, ताकि सिर्फ अल्लाह वहदहू ला शरीक की मस्जिदें इस दुनिया के ऊपर रहें, जो अल्लाह का घर हैं, ये शैतानों का घर हैं, जहां मंदिरों से भी बदतर हैं। तुम जिहाद की बात, हमें यहीं पे गुस्सा आता है जब लोग जिहाद की बात करते हैं, जिहाद करेंगे, जिहाद करेंगे, जिहाद करेंगे। अबे पहले अपनी मंदिरों को तोड़, पहले इन मंदिरों को तोड़, फिर हिंदुओं की मंदिरें खुद ब खुद जो है तुम्हारे नारों से खत्म हो जाएंगी और हिंदू बेचारा मुसलमान हो जाएगा। इसलिए मुसलमानों उठो, और नौजवानों खास तौर से ये मेरी नसीहत है, और जहां कहीं भी मेरी आवाज जाए, दुनिया से इन सारे मदारों को पस्त कर दो, और इन बुजुर्गों की सीनों के ऊपर इन जालिमों ने जो इनकी हड्डियां बेच बेच खाने के लिए खानका और दरगाहें बनाए हैं, अगर ये आड़े आए तो इनको खत्म कर दो, दुनिया मिटा दो।
Somalia's Al-Shabaab supporters are on a mission to erase any hint that their country could have a history that does not conform to their strict version of Islam. They also had another target earlier this week, the tomb of Sheikh Muhyiddin Alayo, a leading and widely respected Sufi scholar. His grave became the latest site to bear their wrath. And it did not end there. The men then hid Sheikh Alayo's remains to prevent his followers from ever being able to pay their respects.
God has granted the Mujahideen the ability to defeat foreigners and have them leave the land. We are now in the process of ending grave worshipping. These tombs are godless.
Al-Shabaab's actions are creating new enemies. Sufi fighters who've recently formed an alliance with the government to fight Al-Shabaab. They say they want to take matters into their own hands to protect their heritage.
They are digging up tombs of Sufi leaders in Kismail and other places. Their behavior is un-Islamic. They want to fight Islam, and that's why they're destroying the sites of men who spread our religion.
But the Al-Shabaab movement says they will continue their crackdown on sites they find offensive, even if their actions have earned them a new, powerful enemy. And they will do so across large parts of Somalia under their control. Zaina Awad, Al Jazeera.
The number of people killed in that horrifying massacre at a mosque that happened yesterday, well, the number of people who died has climbed to 305.
And Egyptian authorities are saying that more than 24 attackers carrying ISIS flags surrounded the mosque before setting off explosives and gunning down people as they tried to flee.
اللي يجوا به اسلوب يعني غير لائق، غير انساني. يعني انت لما جيت تهد بالقوه المفروض هو يجي عن طريق الدوله، عن طريق الاوقاف، عن طريق المفتي، تبعت الناس من البلديه، هم اللي يحفروا، هم اللي ينقبوا ويبعثوا لناس الاهالي الموتى، هم اللي يقولوا لهم تعالوا، وجوا يحضروا وفاه اهلي. يرفعوا يلفون بالطريقه اللي تعجبهم. في مسلحين جينا بالاغراض العامه وجونا بال 14 بال 12 بالكلاش وجونا بالحديد الابيض وما تقدرش تتكلم يعني وتخالفهم يعني حتى انت والله حاولت نتكلم فطاردوا لي عاش ما قدرتش.